Hi, I'm Byron from Sweet Maria's Coffee, and I'm going to show you how to use your Fresh Roast SR800. It roasts green coffee like this right here. You can roast up to 8 ounces at a time. It's a really nice compact machine. It is a little top heavy, so you got to be careful with it. You never want to carry the whole machine as a unit because the top and the roast chamber do not attach completely. So let me go through this here is the roast chamber, glass obviously, and it gives you a really nice view of your coffee as it's roasting, so you can see what roast level it's at. And this here is the base unit, and you have all your controls here. The fan is in here as well as the heating unit, and you have 2 buttons and a knob, and they control the time that your coffee is being roasted for, the heat level that it's at, and the fan speed. Anytime you're roasting coffee, no matter what kind of machine you're using, you never ever want to walk away from the machine, because as coffee starts to get brown, it becomes more and more flammable. So you always want to pay attention, no matter if you're using a $5,000 machine, the Fresh Roast, or using a frying pan, you never want to walk away from your roast. All right, so let me show you a little bit about the Fresh Roast. These are your controls here, and this knob here is your best friend, because what it does is it toggles through the different settings. You can see here the fan setting is now flashing. One more tap, and the heat setting is now flashing. And right now, the time setting is flashing. And what I like to do anytime I get started roasting with the Fresh Roast is crank that time all the way up to 20, because that way you have a longer amount of time to play with your roast. You're not just kind of set on 6 minutes. And also, in the beginning when you get started, just kind of what we like to do at Sweet Maria's is we like to turn the fan all the way up in the very beginning. So I'm turning that up to 9, and I'm going to turn the power or the heat down to 3. And what that's going to do is going to give you a little bit of heat with a whole lot of circulation, and that'll help you get a really good even roast, because coffee in the very beginning is very hard and dense, and fans have a hard time pushing it around in a chamber like this. But once coffee starts roasting a little bit more, it becomes lighter and larger, more surface area and less weight for the fan to push around. So here's 8 ounces of coffee. It's about 7-ish scoops that come with the roaster. If you want to be more precise, go ahead and get a scale and weigh it out yourself. So I'm going to pour this in and put the lid on. Now check this out. Right over here, you see those two little prongs sticking out? Those will sit right on the edge of the handle, like that. That way, you have kind of a horizontal locking mechanism. But like I said before, it is very top heavy, so be very careful when you're moving around the machine as you're roasting. So let's get started. I'm going to hit the start button. And it is a little bit loud, but you're roasting coffee with the fan, so that's kind of what you get. Now, in the very beginning, you're not going to see much action with the beans. You're getting very, very little agitation at the top, even though the fan speed is cranking all the way. But that's going to change in about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see the beans start to change color, and you'll also see the beans start to get agitated more in the roaster as the heat makes them lose a little bit of. Coffee actually does have moisture in it, about 10 to 14%, which is why it weighs a little bit more in the beginning, and it gets a little bit lighter later on as you're going through the roast. Now what we're going to look out for in the first few minutes is you're going to see the coffee changing colors a little bit. It's going to go from this dull green color to more of kind of a light yellow color, and then it's going to progress into a light brown, and then the brown coffee that we recognize as being roasted coffee. One cool thing about this machine is you can see the temperature of your roast as you're roasting. So just by grabbing this knob, giving it a quick turn, you can see the temperature there. It is at 317 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll actually see it rising right there too, at 318 and so on and so on. Just keep in mind that that is the temperature of the air coming out of the machine. It's not actually the temperature of the coffee because the thermometer is actually built into the heating unit. Seeing the temperature of your coffee on here can be very helpful if you're creating like a roast log or a chart where you have the time and temperature mapped out. That way you can compare this roast to your next roast and so on and so on. It can be very educational, so you can compare how to roast your coffee compared to how your last batch came out. Alright, so we're getting a lot more agitation out of this roast now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the fan speed a little bit, and I'm going to turn up the heat to 6, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow more heat to get trapped inside of the coffee beans themselves, and even though you're not seeing a lot of agitation here, the coffee is losing moisture and losing weight, so you're going to start to see it move around a lot more very soon. Alright, so you followed all these steps, and now the big question is, how do I know when my coffee is done roasting? Well, coffee actually talks to you. It goes through a couple stages, and one of those stages is called first crack. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Your coffee will actually start cracking and snapping and popping inside of here. And it's called first crack because there is actually a stage called second crack. And those two stages are separated by about a minute or so. They do sound a little bit different, and you'll get used to the sounds of them as you get more experienced. But first crack, you'll be able to hear it even over the fan here. It really does sound like twigs breaking, and essentially every single bean will crack once during first crack. Alright, so one very obvious thing that you can recognize here is the color of the coffee. It's changed from this kind of dull gray-green color to this light brown color, and that just means that we're right around the corner from it turning brown and hearing first crack. Alright, so we are pretty much towards the end of first crack now. And you can really see a lot of chaff coming off the top right there. It's all getting sucked up into the chaff collector. The beans are really being agitated now because they're just a lot lighter than they were before. So I'm going to turn the fan speed down even more. We're going to go down to 4. Let's go down to 3. And it's totally up to you where you want to stop the roast. Just don't go past second crack because then the coffee becomes really oily and flammable. It becomes a little bit dangerous. Besides, if you stop in the middle of first crack and second crack, that's a really good base for the flavors of the coffee. So from there you'll know if you want to go darker or lighter, depending on if you want like more deeper, darker chocolatey notes for a second crack, or more like lighter acidic notes in first crack. First crack is pretty much done, so that's where I like it, kind of a medium roast. So I'm going to hit the run/cool button, and that will turn off the heater inside and just leave the fan on. And from there, what we can do is just crank the fan all the way up to 9, and that is just pulling ambient air into the roaster. It's going to help cool your beans off really fast. The reason why we cool beans like this is because roasting coffee is a little bit like spaghetti in a sense, where let's say you're cooking spaghetti at home in a hot pot of water, and it's done cooking, you've tasted it, it's perfectly al dente. You don't just turn the fire off and walk away because you're like, that spaghetti's done. You want to take it off and cool it in cool water to stop the cooking process. It's the same thing with coffee. We paid attention to it, we worked so hard to get it to a medium roast level, and now we want to lock it into that roast level. So that's why we start cooling the coffee off right away. With other roasters or other roasting methods, there's different ways to cool your coffee. Luckily, there's a built-in cooling cycle with the fresh roast, so we're good to go with that. Okay, so our cooling cycle is done. At this point, you can lift off the chaff collector, and like I said, it might dump a little chaff on you, but that's what it looks like. It's packed full of chaff. So you can just put that aside. The lid still will be pretty hot, so be careful when handling it, but it's still cool enough to hold for a little bit. And here is our roasted coffee. This is a nice medium roast level. It's evenly roasted. Fresh roast always does a good job. So there you go. If you're wondering where to get green coffee at, you can find it on the internet. Just look up green home roasting coffee and you should find different sellers for it. Hopefully you go with us, Sweet Maria's Coffee. We're right here in Oakland, close to the Berkeley Library. You can order online, and because if you're in Berkeley, we can ship to you overnight and it'll get there really fast. There's dozens and dozens of different coffees to choose from. It can get a little overwhelming. So read through the descriptions, see what sounds good to you, because we always describe coffees by different types of foods or drinks. So if you're into like chocolatey tasting coffees, we got those. If you want ones that taste like fruit and berries, we got those too. And when I talk about flavors, they're not actually flavored per se. They are in their natural state, but they are going to taste like those flavors once brewed. If you were to buy coffee from Sweet Maria's or another green coffee seller, you'll notice that there's roast levels that are described that aren't necessarily light, medium, and dark. You'll see terms like City, City Plus, and they're on the label too. And those are just more technical terms that coffee roasters use to be a little more descriptive about what level the coffee roast has gone to. So if you see City, City Plus, Full City, those are kind of in like a light medium level. If you see like Full City Plus, Vienna, or French, then you're going into the darker medium to dark roast levels. Don't get too intimidated in the beginning. Just go with what you think you're gonna like and go from there. There's a ton of information online. And yeah, hope you enjoy roasting with the Fresh Roast SR800. Have fun and keep roasting. Thanks.